Hi guys, so let's begin our session for today. So I'm Akash and I will be your coach throughout this session. I'll start with today's topic, that is Angular. We're going to learn how exactly we can build a simple application with few topics about the Angular. So what is Angular, how exactly we have to use. So we'll talk about what is new in Angular 8, what is TypeScript, and then we're going to talk about integrating the external CSS, how Angular load, then components, and then planning the application. So in this complete session, we are going to build one small application that is going to do some display part on our screen. So let's begin with that. Now, what is actually Angular is? Now, even before jumping to what exactly Angular is, when I say Angular, when we make a complete application, where exactly this Angular fit in that application? First of all, let's understand the structure of any application that you see around. Then you understand that where exactly we have to use Angular. I'll open one architecture design, a simple, very simple, basic design. Now, when we talk about any application, guys, whether it be small, whether it be big, Flipkart, Amazon, Facebook, or whatever application you are using, whatever application you're working on or you're using right now in the market, every application will guys have four parts for sure. What are those four parts of the application? The first is called as a front end of the application. Then we have a back end of the application. Then we have a database of the application, and then we have server of the application. Front end, back end, database, and server. So whatever kind of application you pick, every application will have minimum four parts. It can be more than that. It can be caching, it can be databases, and so many things when you design one architecture of the application. But when I just talk about a one basic application structure, every application have minimum four parts. So how exactly this four part works? Okay, let me show you one simple example. Now on this website, you see so many things, right? You see overview, you see repositories, you see projects, you see packages, you see this image, some content, some display part, some organizations like that, right? You see so many things in front of you. Now, what all things that you can see or what all things that you can interact with? Okay, the things that you can see or the things that you can interact with all are the front end of the application, guys. Okay, the things that we can see or the things that I can interact with all are the front end of the application. Now, when we say that the front end of the application, then when I'm jumping here, I'll see some different data. When I jump here, I see some different data. How this data is coming? This data is particularly coming from your database. Okay, this data is coming from the database. So we understand one thing, that the display part is basically our front end, and the things where we can see is basically referred as a database. Means the data is present in a database and the display part is basically referred as our front end of the application. Now, when we have something like that, then what is the use of backend? What I'll do is I'll go to database, pick a data and display on the screen. It's better option, but is it possible directly? No. As of now, there is no such framework in the market which can pick a data directly from the database and display it on the front end. So to get the data from the database and to display on the front end, you need one more layer between that, and that layer is referred as the backend layer is. So in short, we can say that when we are making any application, every application will have minimum four parts: front end that display, then you have your database that have a storage, backend in terms of, I say, backend is something that's more like a business or a logical part of the application. The next thing that we have is our server. What is that server? So once that application is created, no, once that application is ready to use, what you will do that application? Ultimately, you have to display or make that application live so that you can consume it. The ultimate goal is to make an application live so that we can consume it. If that application is not live, nobody can consume that application. So at the end, you have to make the application the way so that people can start consuming your application. And the consumption part of the application is actually come from your server. Server is the one which help you to actually consume that application on the browser side. Okay, service are one that give us in the way through which we can consume our application. So in short, the first part of the application is a display, second is the business logic, and third is your backend, and fourth is your server. So that is how, guys, a one application is constructed and consumed. The next thing, so what all things are there which involve the front end and back end and database? The things that we can see can be constructed either through your, say, Angular, React, or basic HTML. It can be done through simple Angular or simple React or simple basic HTML, JavaScript. All of them can make a one front end of the app. It can be anything that you can use depending upon requirement. You can use anything. So all of them are particularly used for making a front end. Then when we talk about the backend can be your Node.js, Python, Java, Ruby. It can be PHP. It can be any language that can be used for the backend. In a similar fashion, database can be MySQL, Oracle, MongoDB. These are the databases that you can use. So this is how that things are divided. Now, when we talk about particularly Angular to make a one front end of the application, I want to show you one thing, guys. Let's see. I'll run one application of Angular. Localhost 8085. Now, do you see home, product, order, music? Okay, I'll open that as Safari. That gives a better understanding. So I'll open that application as Safari. Let's create that and let's open one more website, say GitHub itself. Now see this application. On this application, do you see I have a home, product, order, music. Now when I'm jumping from home to product, notice one thing, page is not refreshing. Only the content take a time to load, but ultimately my page is not refreshing anywhere. So what exactly it mean? This kind of application called single page application. How they work behind the scene, I'll show you. Now see this one. If I click on this issue, it opens something. When I click on pull request, it opens something. And when I click on the marketplace, do you see the page refresh every time I click on a tab? But in this case, when I've jumped from home to product, page is not refreshing. Page is not refreshing when I jump from home to product, but ultimately when I'm switching in the other website, it's changing my complete page also. It's refreshing that page. What exactly the Angular doing here? This kind of application are called as a single page application. How exactly they work behind the scene? How single page application work behind the scene? Now to work on the single page application, no, what they do is we make one page called as our layout page. Okay, what that layout page will do, that layout page is my common page. In this website, this header and other part of my application can be a footer also. This is the common layout. This is something which is common to my page application, right? Now we have other component, like home is one component, product is one component, order is one component. What is component? Component refer as, guys, one single page, each page is refer as one component. Each component have its own HTML, have its own your logical part, have its own CSS, have its own UI content. So in short, we can say that every page have its own content, and these all pages are actually referred as your single page. These are all one by one is one single page, and we can also refer as one single component. Each page refer as our one component. Okay. Now, when we say each page referring as our one component for us, then how exactly it work behind the scene? Now, what happened when you click on home? No, the content of home will load in this area. How exactly? So basically, in this case of the applications, at once means when the application is loading, at the time of the initial load, the complete application get loaded. Means all the pages get loaded at the once. Now, when you jump from one page to other page, only the content is replacing. Everything is there, but only the content is replacing. And how it getting a data? So in the real time, it getting a data. So it's a, we think like when it take a lot of time, the application is very big, then take a lot of time to load, right? But it's not like that, guys. It's not like that. When the application is big, it take a lot of time. Then what the reason that not take much time to load? Because obviously it will be bigger application, take a lot of time. No. Why? because the data that you see inside the application is loading after the application loaded. Remember one thing, the data that you see inside the application loads after the application got loaded. Only at the time of the loading, only at time of loading, what exactly load? It just load the dummy empty structure. Rest everything that you see is particularly loading after the page load. So that is the reason that these applications are not take much time to load, because the content in the application loading later on, only the DOM structure load or only the page load happen initially. So this is how, guys, one application work for us in terms of our single page application. When somebody click on home, the content of home will load in this area. When somebody click on about, home will go back and about will load in this area. When somebody click on about, contact, about will go back and contact will load in this area. It means every time the page load, the content will keep on changing, but the application remains same there. Okay, and this is particularly refer as, guys, your single page application. And one more important thing is, when we write our Angular code is written inside a TypeScript. TypeScript that stands for TS. T dot, all the file in Angular will be dot TS file. Okay. What is TypeScript? Actually, TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript, guys. So in short, what all things you do in the JavaScript, same thing you can do in the TypeScript, but TypeScript have some additional feature more than a JavaScript. So that's how it becomes that TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. What all thing a JavaScript have, TypeScript also have all those things. Only thing is it has some extra functionality more than the JavaScript. Okay. So Angular is a front-end framework that help to build a single page application using TypeScript. In short, the brief description is it helps to make a single page application, and the structure it follows is a component based structure. That's what it means, but you can define it in any way. And other thing about the Angular is it is actually designed by the Google. Remember one thing, anything that is launched by these kind of big companies, they get more popular and they get a more market. What the reason for that? See, the point is simple. When these companies bring up anything, they bring up a big community with that support these things. So, and in anything, if the support is high, obviously that language or that particular technology grow very fast. The reason for that is because support of that particular thing is very high. That is the reason they grow fast and they get a better, we get a better opportunities also. The other reason that for this is we get a better opportunity because the support of them is very high. So anything that backed by the Google or a Facebook or a big company like Amazon and all, they get a better understanding. JavaScript is used when we talk about the Angular 1, but when we talk about now Angular 2 or the higher version of Angular, then ideally it is talking about our TypeScript only. So earlier it is working on JavaScript, but now it work on the TypeScript only. I just explained you the concept of single page application, and yes, it actually promote a single page application, and with the help of this we can make a single page application with us. Now, what is new in Angular 8? Okay, Angular is coming up with a new version every time. When it coming up with a new version, so the mindset of people is like every time we cannot go and change our code, right? That's the one mindset of everyone, that we cannot go and change our code every day, because if the every time the new version will keep on coming, up to what extent we'll keep on working in our code, right? So up to what extent we keep on changing our code, that's a bit difficult for us. So ideally, for that reason, I just want to clear one thing. Although Angular coming up with a new version, but it doesn't mean that Angular is more like that every time a new version come and every time that all things got changed. Not like that. So what exactly happening? Whenever the Angular is coming up with a new version, no, it's only trying to change their backend. Their maximum 90% of a change is on their backend side. They are trying to make the thing in the way that it become easy for people to make it more faster, more reliable. So that is their focus. So their main focus is they're focusing on the things to become more lighter and more in terms of your usable when it comes to the Angular side. So their main focus is to make an application more usable or more light in weight. What is the new thing? There are three new things that come up in the Angular this time. One is called as, guys, IV rendering, one is called as a Babel engine, and one is called as a differential load. What is IV rendering? The very first topic, I'll tell you one thing. After this IV rendering is going to introduce, this is going to be a one of the again become a, right now the React has on the top of the market which is trending, but this is going to be a trending in a market very soon again once it come up with the next thing that is there, IV rendering and these two topic called basal and differential loading. IV is one of the engine that Google use for their maximum products. Okay, like your YouTube and all, these are running on the IV rendering. And when it comes to the IV rendering, obviously this IV rendering is going to enhance the application so much that it become easy for us to load, and it is going to be very light in weight. Plus, it is going to be in the way that you are trying to consume it in a way that it's quite useful for us at the end of the day. So ultimately, the application performance is going to be increased once the IV rendering is going to introduce very soon. In as of now in Angular 8, this is right now still in the beta version. Means some people use it, some people don't use it because they officially said that it's not full-fledged available. It's going to be full-fledged available when exactly it is going to be in the next version of Angular. So right now it's not very much trending, means not very much usable because it's not completely available to us. It's gonna be soon completely available to us in the next version of Angular. Once it is available, we can start using it. To enable IV rendering in the package in a tsconfig.json, there's a one option you can say IV rendering true, and one more in angular.json file, there's one option called IV rendering. You can set it to true. By default, it's not enabled right now. Then differential loading. So the Basel engine. What a Basel engine is? Google open source software responsible for building most of our project under the name of Bazel. Bazel is a powerful tool which keeps the track of dependency between the packages and build target. The coolest feature of Bazel is that its smart algorithm determine the build dependency. So right now when the application build, so that with the help of a Bazel later on, the build become smaller. The size of the build again gonna become smaller with the help of this Bazel engine. So when the Bazel will introduce going soon, so it become easy for us to run the application because the Bazel make my build smaller, and when obviously the build is smaller, so in at that time your application performance will be bit more better to load on the server side. Right now it's not very much although it's quite small right now, but I told you know what exactly they're doing is every time they're coming up with a new thing in terms of these kind of a structure. Every time they're coming up with a way that how they can make the application to load more faster. They are not focusing on changing the code of the user. They say the code will be same. The application that built in Angular 2, no, same application can be used with Angular 8. Hardly few changes need to be done, but majorly the changes which are happening is happening on the back end side of the application. The next thing about the application is differential loading. Okay, this is a very common issue that everybody must have faced that. What is differential loading is, suppose I want to make an application on the say for a Chrome, right? Sometimes it's a very normal question problem in IT. We are building an application of the Chrome, and suddenly what happened, that application is working on the Chrome but not working on the IE, working on the Chrome but not working on Firefox, working on Firefox but not working on Safari, right? So this kind of thing generally happen. Like one application that build with one thing is working on the one structure, one browser perfectly, but not working with other browser. How exactly this thing work and how we can enhance this thing? So basically, when we say that things are working in the way that working on one browser but not on the other browser, then in that case you have one thing called differential loading. If you are asking me for giving me the say build of the, you want to run it over the Firefox, will make a build which is compatible for the Firefox. Similarly, if you say that no, you want to need a build for Firefox and Chrome also, when the we make a build for Chrome and Firefox, when automatically it's going to run over the Firefox, it's gonna pick that build, and then when it's gonna run over the Chrome, it is going to pick that build. So in short, it become in the way that we will tell that what exactly, for what purpose we are trying to use it, and according to that purpose, the build will be created, and that build can be used for that particular usage. So in short, Going forward, it's gonna become in the way that a build will be created for that particular thing in that particular manner, and by this it become easy for us to say consume our applications in the different browsers also. Okay, so these are three new things. Although they are still in the beta version, they're going to be coming soon in the Angular, and once they are launched, this Angular is going to be again one more next level in terms of the application development. Project setup. How to set up one Angular project in a system? Okay, I'm going to set up one Angular project in a system. I'll show you what all step you have to follow. And guys, what all code or what all step I'm gonna write here now in my folder. I'll make a one fresh folder by the name of ANG webinar. Now all this code which I'm gonna write, I'm going to push that code to the Git. So those who actually want to get a code also, what I'm gonna write today, you can get through a Git. You just have to go and follow this repo by the name of Akash Developer. On this repo, I have so many code, not only for the Angular, it's for multiple language. Angular, React, Node, Python, SAS, AWS, GCP, Java, or Python. So many things I'm doing in my day-to-day job. So basically, if you just search ANG Angular by just name of Angular itself, you will find so many repository from where you can get the code like this. Now, first of all, let me tell you how exactly we can set up one application project in for Angular. I am using a text editor by the name of Visual Studio Code, but it's not compulsory that which text editor you should use. You can use any text editor of your choice, as like Java or any other programming like .NET. There's no such constraint what text editor to choose because it's free in terms of using a text editor. I'll make one extra file where I'll write some steps that you guys have to follow for building that application. The very important thing about the Angular framework to design is you must have Node.js in your system. You do a star mark. Node.js must be installed in the system. The very first thing. How to install that? Just go to the browser and type download Node.js. You just say Node.js. No, nodejs.org is a website. On this website, you will going to get that Node.js version, and LTS version are the stable version as compared to the Node, means as compared to your other version. So always prefer to use the LTS versions. Okay, whatever is the latest. After that, once the Node.js is with you, the next thing that you should do is you need to install one package, a global package. You have to open your command prompt. If you're using a Windows system, for a window people, run command prompt as administrator. Means you'll find an option say when you search a CMD, no, you'll find an option say run as administrator. So run as administrator one command prompt. After that, in that command prompt, you type a command npm I -g @angular /CLI. You have type npm I -g @angular /CLI. What is that actually? Angular CLI is a particularly a one framework of Angular. With the help of this, you can develop one Angular application. Okay, with the help of this, you can start developing your Angular application. So you have Angular CLI. Okay, you have to install this package by the name of Angular CLI. Now, once your Angular CLI is installed, this is for window people. Suppose you want to create any application. No, now whatever application you want to create, for creating that application, you have to navigate to this path. Means in whatever folder you want to create application, using your command prompt, navigate to that path. We'll say navigate to the folder using CMD. Once you are in the folder where you want to generate an application, there type ng new app name. Ng new app name, whatever application you want to generate. Once you define that your application is application name you have defined, after that the next thing that you have to do is go inside the application, whatever application created, go inside that, use cd and application name. Once you are inside that, just type npm start. Once at npm start, go to browser and type localhost 4200. This is a default port number over which our application run. So on this port number, your application will start running. So these steps you have to follow, that you have to create the application in this manner and the application start running. So let me just show you how exactly you can do that. Let's do this for Windows people, and from Mac and Linux, I'll tell you. Only a few things will change for Mac and Linux people. We'll do each step one by one. From Mac, open your terminal. Open your terminal. Then use sudo npm i-g. Use a sudo command with that, and rest thing will be same. Whether it be Mac, Linux, or Unix, or Ubuntu, any system. Okay, let's try that. So I already have this global package with me. I'll start from this place. So I'll go in the folder that is cd desktop ang webinar. I'll write ng space new and the application name. Suppose my application name is first app. Any name it can be. Now it asks, do you want the Angular routing? I say yes, and the CSS will be SAS, normal CSS. Now what it will do, guys, one first app folder created and one application structure also created. See, first app folder with application structure got created. Once it completed, you will see it come out of terminal. Once that completed, then you can go inside the folder and start running the application there. Let it take 1 or 2 minutes. Let it get completed. Don't worry about this. Okay, it's done. Now we'll clear this. Go inside the application now. cd first app. There type npm start. When you start this, automatically this is going to compile the application and run for us. So this is how the project setup is done, and it's successfully compiled also. Now the next step is done. Go to the browser, type localhost 4200. So open a browser and type localhost 4200. See, the first app is running. So application started, generated, and it's running also. So this is how exactly you work on the application, and this is how exactly application run and execute. The next topic that we have in our topic category is, so if we talk about TypeScript, the superset of JavaScript, strongly type object oriented compiled language. It is designed by the Andres at the Microsoft, and the TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. So in short, we call it a superset of JavaScript. The reason for that is, as I said, that what all thing that JavaScript have, TypeScript also have everything. So before talking about integrating all these things, let's first talk about a few major things about our application. Let me first talk about what are components are there in one Angular application. Now we'll say building block of Angular. Now what are the building blocks we have in the Angular? So with the building blocks that we have in our Angular is, there are merely 6 building block of Angular. Okay, in total we have 6 building block in Angular. What are those 6 blocks? Let's talk about that. One is called as your component, module, then pipe, then service, then routing, then directive. One we have is our pipe, component, service, routing, and we have one more thing, that is directive. What are these things? Okay, now first of all, component. What is component? Component each page refer as one component. I already told you. So we can say that one component contain its own HTML, own CSS. So what component contain? Own HTML, CSS, and logics. So each page refer as one component, and in each page we have one HTML, CSS, and the logics. Okay, so each single page refer as one component to you. Apart from that, what is pipe? We'll talk about module later on. Pipe, runtime data manipulation. What does it mean? Okay, let me go back. Do you see this price? Right now the price that you see is something very much in different manner. I mean, the price that you see currently is like minus also is not possible. Why it's happened? Ideally you have to correct the logic of that also, but what exactly happening behind the scene? Let me tell you one thing. So see how the data is coming. As I told you that there's no way that Angular can read the data from a database. That's not possible. Then what exactly Angular did? Angular actually getting a data from a database using the API. Now see this API. What the price here? 19. And what the price you see in your application? It's 9. What the price here? It's 32. What price you see is 22. How exactly does we are asking the database owner to change the price? No. In real time, we don't ask a database owner to change our price. The reason for that is if a database owner, suppose this same API, okay, if I'm using a same API at the multiple places, same API might be used at the in our mobile application also, in our web application also. And you, if you remember, sometime it happened, the sale is only on the web application, sales are not on the mobile application, right? So how exactly we're going to manage that thing that the sale is going only on the web application, not on the mobile application? How we can manage that? So basically to achieve that functionality, to manage that functionality, we need to have what? Pipes. Pipe, the name indicating runtime data manipulation. So whatever data is coming to us, we don't have to worry about that. Okay, whatever data is coming to us, will not worry about that data at our side also. So it's possible at our side that we can manipulate the data at on our side. So we don't have to ask a particular user or a database owner to do something for us. We at our side will manipulate our data. So this is basically called runtime data manipulation, and this is actually achieved using your pipes services to connect with any third party or DB interaction. I can do that using your services. In one application, any database interaction that is going to happen will happen through your services, guys. Okay, services are the one that give us this functionality, and with the help of service we can make it. So in short, we can say that service are the one with the help of which we do all our database interaction. And here the one concept in Angular called dependency injection. What does the dependency injection mean? Dependency injection also refers to same thing. Like what is the, okay, if we see one database, what is the dependency of a database on Angular? Because as database cannot talk to the application directly, so now somehow we have to inject that data from the database into our application, and that's where it comes to the dependency injection. Okay, that's where it comes to the dependency injection, when we have to insert a database from the external source into our application. Next thing, routing. To manage jumping between the page, the page is actually handled through your routing. So routing is the one that help us to jump between the one page to other page, and that actually done through your routing. Then directive. Ideally now in a new version of Angular, directive is not much useful. Earlier directives are very useful. Directive is a small portion of a page. Suppose you have one table in the page. Okay. Now you want to make a table reusable, means anyone can use that table. So for doing that kind of structure, to make it possible to use a data table from any place in any component, I can use that table. So for that purpose particularly, we use our directive to make a reusable thing. But ultimately earlier when it was the Angular 1, no, that time it was very much useful, because at that time we don't have a concept of proper Angular and reusable Angulars. So on the other side, you can say that your directive is a small portion of the page, and this directive ideally nowadays, this directive can be actually used with the help of your just component itself. So we don't need a directive. Now we talk about all these building blocks, but what about module? What does that module do? Module is something that help to achieve. So as if we go in a school, right, if we go in a school, we have one register in the school. What that register contain? That one common register in which all student names are there, right, by the help of which our office or a school know, or anybody come to audit, suppose anybody come to audit our school, from that register they can check that what all who all students are there, in which all classes are there, means that's our entry point. That's more like a complete description of your students. So basically module is where we declare all things, where we declare all things. All thing means your components, your modules. So in one application you can have multiple modules, but they have one common module, means one parent module and one parent component. But you can have a component, module, pipe, service, routing, directive in multiple numbers. So what all things are there, how we can get that? We can get that actually by the help of your module. We'll do all these declarations, and with this declaration it become possible for us to consume that. Now let's start with the where the actually the application is written. Basically all the content that you're building, no, where exactly you're writing it. There's one folder called, okay, I have to give walkthrough of that folder, overview of that application. The next topic that we have is integration of CSS that I'll do, and how exactly Angular loads. In that application of Angular, there's so many things that you have, guys. So there's so many folder. Do we have to work on all the folder? Ideally not. You don't have to work on all the folders in the application. You have to work on some particular folder in the application. As I said that in one application there's a one file called module. We always have one file by the name of parent module, and similarly we have one file by the name of parent component. Okay, in one application we have one parent module and one parent component. So module that you have, this module that you have is one parent module. Here all the declarations happen, and you have one component that having a component name and title of with any content. How the HTML is coming? This is a place, app component HTML is a place where all HTML is written. So suppose I remove that and I write one H1 and say this is Edureka webinar. Now go back to the browser and check your page. It said this is Edureka webinar. What does it mean? It means that actually the content got changed now, and we are able to see the webinar from the Edureka, right? So we have one main file called app module where all the declaration happen, and we have one main file called app component where all the content that you're typing is written here. Now how exactly the application run? So the very first file that execute in the application is angular.json. Angular.json is the very first file, guys, that execute in one application. The very first file when the compilation is happening. Right now I'm not talking about the browser. I'm just talking about when the compilation is happening. When anything is compiling, at that point of time, the first thing that load is your angular.json. Now angular.json specify from where to, because as a browser, what the browser do? browser have a thing that it always try to load the index.html. But when we will let them load, once my application compile, after compilation only, I let my Angular to load the application. Okay. So in short, the very first file to compilation after angular.json is main.ts. Main.ts is something that load once the application is after angular.json, this file load main.ts. Now, as I said that in one application, you can have more than one module, you can have more than one component. So how application will be aware which is a main component to load and which is the first component to load and which is a second component to load, or which is the first module to load or which is second module to load. How it gonna specify that? To specify that, the main.ts specify which module to load, that is app module from app.module file. So it went to src and go to the app.module. So how it happened? From Angular dot is very, very important for interview, I'm telling you. Main.ts. Now the main.ts will tell that you have to load something called as app.module.ts. Okay. Then app.module will load app, which component to load, we'll say app component. Then we actually go for and load the app component for us. Okay. After the app module, app component load, app.component.ts. Now once it load, what it do actually, it now load bind the content in the HTML. App.this is basically bind. So these are the one name here, right? App.root. How it's connected in index.html, no, they have one thing called app.root, app-root. So by this way, exactly your application is connected. So this is the way, guys, that you have to work on the Angular. First of all, you have the way is angular.json, main.ts, app module, app component. After that, the whatever the output is there, that output actually load inside the index.html. So once this structure is loaded, then let's go and talk more about our structure of application. So how exactly I can start making one component? The very first component that you have to load you will load through one thing called as your app.component.html. Now I have loaded one component there, suppose. Okay. Now once my one component loaded, now I want to load a next component. Means one is fine, but now I want to load our next component. How exactly I can do in the way that I can start loading my next component? Now to load our next component, what you need to do is you need to start working on, I'll make one more component here. Say I'll give a name as header dot component dot ts. All the file will be having extension dot ts file. Okay. One component, we can make a separate folder for that also. I'll make one folder by the name of header. In that I'll put header.component.ts. One component have one ts file, component.html, one html file, and one css file. One component will have three things: ts, html, and css. Okay. ts, html, and the css, these are the three things that one component is going to have. How exactly we have to start writing our code? So the very first thing that we have to start writing our code is you have to give three things in one component. Okay, one component have three things, guys. What are those three things? The very first thing that one component is import. What is this import refer to? Import means for making any component, you need to import component from Angular/core. This is the very first thing that you need to have in one component. Why we need it? Because this is something which tell the Angular application what we are trying to build. The very first thing that we need to have in a system is component. Then your next part is called as decorator. At the rate component, non bracket, curly bracket. and at the end export that. Export class name of component. I'll say header component like this. Now this part of a component will contain few things. First of all, it tell that what exactly your structure is going to look in terms of, like, first of all it tell us that okay, this is a component that you are building, and in this component what is the name or going to be the name of my component. Name in terms of, it will tell that what exactly this application name is will be, means the component name will be by name of selector. I'll say app hyphen say header, any name you can give. Then you have to tell that what is a template which is connected with, what is the HTML of this component. We'll say template URL. I'll say dot slash header dot component dot html. Header dot component dot html. And then what does CSS attach? We'll say style URLs. This is a way to attach a CSS. We'll say dot slash header dot CSS dot, so header dot component dot CSS. And the CSS will be in square bracket. Why? To one HTML, to one component, only one HTML can attach. Remember one thing, to one component only one HTML can attach, whereas to one component multiple CSS styling can be multiple. To one component only one HTML is going to attach, guys. Okay, so now in my HTML I have to give the next thing. How exactly we can make it that we can actually bind it with the HTMLs? Now in an HTML file you can pass anything. In the HTML file you can pass anything. How exactly we're gonna pass it? Let me show you. So here suppose I write one simple h1 tag, say header. Under that I'll give one HR tag, horizontal line. Okay, now you want to use it. First of all, take this component and declare, where I told you everything need to declare in app. Here in the your declaration array, declare that component which you want to use like this. Once your component is declared, you have a name of component, take this component, go to your app component.html, and above this, anywhere above this I want to use it. Suppose I'll put like this. If we go back to browser, see header and your Edureka app. See, one component created and consumed. Now suppose I want to bring in center, so I'll go to my CSS. I'll say h1 text align center. If you go back, see text coming in center. This is how exactly you can start consuming your CSS there. Okay. Now, next thing I want to show you. Let's suppose we want to use some external CSS in terms of our, say suppose some bootstrap is there. Okay. Now from that bootstrap, I want to use this. Bootstrap is altogether one external CSS that we can consume. To consume that in a bootstrap, so first of all we'll say bootstrap navbar. Suppose I want a navbar in my application, I'll say bootstrap navbar. Now how to use that? They have three scripts. Take the, okay, what is a common file, where should I add this and can be consumed anywhere? So this is the index file. Here I'll add and I can consume it anywhere. Now I edit there, right? Now I'll go back to my HTML. So this is the navbar code. I'll take this navbar code and go to my HTML. Here I'll paste this navbar code like this. And here I have a website name. I'll say Edureka. Now go back to browser, guys. See, we start getting navbar. Want to give a better color? So I'll say inverse See, you see a color. You want to give a proper say margin. Go to index, add this. I'll say div class container. This is the bootstrap class container. App hyphen root. Go back, check. See, you're getting application a better structure. So guys, this is what I want to deliver you today, that how exactly the Angular work, how exactly we can make a component, and how exactly you can consume the component. So guys, I think this is how we are done with our session, and we have completed all our things that were supposed to be done. Okay then, thanks a lot. Bye bye.